Welcome to the Loving People Podcast. We are your hosts, Patrick
and Rada,
and our goal is to point you to Jesus in all struggles of this life. All right, we have a special guest with us today. Rada, we have the one, the only, the fantastic
Daniel Lowry.
Bum, 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 bum.
I'm thankful there's only one, trust me. So I think everybody else is too. So I'm glad to
I
be here
think
with you
Haley would say the exact same
guys.
thing.
I think so too.
Yeah,
Lord knows we don't need too many of me running around. So.
I don't know.
There's a mini you
little...
running around.
Oh, there you go. That's what I was going to say.
Poor Holt.
Or a Holt. You were telling me earlier you learned a new slang word, right?
Oh my word. Yeah. So my kids came home yesterday from school. It's like, hey, Dad, can we start saying the word Sigma? And I was like, I don't know what you mean. So I look it up, right? So I'm like, well, I guess we can use this word. I think it's okay as long as you're using it in a nice way. So everyone else right now is Googling what that might mean from a slang standpoint,
Right. Just be careful.
Be careful.
Sigma is, I guess, you're kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
From everything I looked up, you're not only an alpha male, but you're beyond.
It will change probably again.
I would have thought if you're beyond alpha, you were beta.
Yeah,
we're just skipping the alphabet.
Yeah,
we're going
we
all
should
the
start
way
our
to
own
Sigma.
slang here. That's so Omega of you to say that, man.
Have you ever said nerds?
Nerds. Yeah, exactly.
We will own that. All right, so in this podcast, we are going to be talking about technology. We're actually going to be bringing y'all two podcasts. The purpose of this one is to kind of let you guys know the impact of technology, really what all's been going on in the culture surrounding technology, what's going on in our lives today when it comes to technology. And the next one is how do we respond to that? How do we live wisely as Christians in this kind of digital age? Well, let's start off with a question here. Have you ever accidentally sent a text to the wrong person? And if so, what happened?
I have. Ray, would you like to go first?
Sure. I'm just going to give 3 little blips. Yes, I have. It was a PR, personal relationship nightmare with my boss. That's it. I'm not telling you anymore.
I wish we could know more.
No.
I'll throw myself under the bus on this one.
I will say this. I'm going to reach out to Kenny and see if I can get some answers here.
I don't think he knows. I don't think I've told
She's
us all.
kept it such a quiet. It's been
It will go to my grave with me.
Well, apparently it's not that big of a PR nightmare if not many people know about it.
It was for me.
So I remember mine. I was in college. Haley and I had been dating, and we were getting really close. And I texted her one day. I said, hey, baby, I just want you to know I love you. And I get a text back from my boss, who was a few years older than me. And she texts me back, and she says, Daniel, I don't think you intended to send this text message to me. And I'm like, nope, Hutch, I'm sorry. This was not meant for you. So, yeah, I think I had, and then the next time I saw her in person.
You were really red, weren't you?
I was a little red, yeah.
Yeah.
So we can sweep that one under the rug, too.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
Rada, I'm going to go along your lines here and say, yes, I've done that. There was something I thought I was sending to only my wife that was kind of goofy, and it went to our whole family group text. So it went to my mom, my dad, my grandma, my brother, my sister-in-law, and Maddie. It still went to Maddie. It just included a lot of other people. And if you want to know what that is, come find me.
And if you would like to know more information, Daniel and I can be bought.
I would be more than happy to share with you.
All right, well, let's kind of jump into this. We're doing this because technology it's in all of our lives. There's no escaping it. There's no kind of rewinding the clock and doing a whole, let's go back to the future before there were the days of technology. We don't have Doc where we can do that, right? But we have to know how to live with it. So we did this thing at the church called technology, right? Yeah. And we've done that 2 times now, where our goal is to once a year just kind of get together on a Wednesday night as a church family and equip parents and teenagers with resources and tools to how to live wisely in the digital age. So that's kind of what we're bringing in here is what we did recently. So we're going to walk through a few kind of questions. Technology is growing at a rapid pace. They say there's this law called Moore's Law, which says it doubles every 18 to 32 months. So it's like the rats in New York City or the rabbits out in your land. They're multiplying. They're everywhere, and there's no stopping it at this point. So the question is, let's start off on a positive note. What are some blessings that we can receive from technology, or maybe that we personally get from technology?
And when we say technology, do we need to define it as a broad sense, or are we talking about specifically digital technology?
Well, let's do a little bit of both. Let's define technology in a broad sense and then kind of whittle it down to today we're talking about digital technology.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, if you're receiving this right now, you are using
Welcome.
technology. So hopefully this right now is a blessing to you. But you can think about broader terms than that. Even you can think about the health areas and think about how thankful we can be for certain medications and technology from surgical standpoints and all that. I mean, it's brilliant. Or even indoor plumbing. I know I'm very thankful for that. So we can think about
That's
it even
right.
broader. So that's just a few things I can think of right off the top of my head that it's a wonderful thing to have.
I think in coming down into a more narrow view too, I know the ability to research, to search out scriptures, to have a quick reference. It's so good because you know you may not know where that scripture's found, but you know it has this word in it, and that's what you're trying to get across. You Google that word in scripture and it pops up, and
Yeah.
it's easy and it's fast, and it takes the load off my little brain.
That's right. You're not going through a concordance for hours
No,
anymore.
That's right.
I can give you one of those if you wanted.
A
They're
concordance?
They're like something.
Oh yeah. I've seen that. I also have my vines, so
There
thank
you
you.
go.
we're getting some throwbacks here. You know, I'm appreciative of, even yesterday, a friend of mine reached out to me that he's been in seminary for a while and he's starting to wrap up things, and he asked, hey, will you send me your latest version of your resume that you used when you came to the church that you're at now? So I got that, emailed it to him, and he lives, 4 or 5 hours away, so didn't have to mail that to him and him receive it days later. He got to get it right then. I think of, let's talk about Grubhub. Let's talk about Uber Eats. You can have food delivered right to your door. Don't ever use it, but that's really cool. Walmart Plus delivery.
I love that.
Come on now. And another cool one is I love my little nephew. He just turned 1, and we've got our family, speaking of the family text group chat, getting to see him where they just every day get to send us videos of him growing up and just the new memories being made. It's cool to where, in person, I may only get to see him every 3 or 4 months. Right. But with this technology, I get to see him every day.
Yeah.
So really, really cool thing. So let's flip that now. What are some dangers maybe that we need to be aware of?
Oh, there are so many dangers to be made aware of, generally speaking, or even just specifically with digital technology. I mean, we can probably, I don't know if you want to parse that out.
We're kind of honing in on digital technology right now.
Yeah. I mean, digital technology, one of the greatest things we're seeing right now as a problem is the lack of socialization, and depression rates, anxiety rates are all going up because of that. And we could throw statistics galore out because of it. I mean, statistics right now showing that college students are 40% less empathetic now than they used to be a couple of decades ago. Contributing factors being digital technology and the lack of interaction with one another even. So Sherry Turkle did a whole book about that, so it's been very helpful.
Yeah. And she's been kind of a guru in that area. She's come out with a couple books. I know a while back, I think it was 2017, there was this book called iGen released, and a sociologist named Jane Twenge, she did all this research on Gen Z and saw that around 2007, right in the advent of the iPhone and getting social media on our phones, anxiety and depression rates just skyrocketed. And at that time, she said we can't necessarily prove causation, but we can say there's correlation. Now, just last year, another guy that has really kind of been studying Gen Z, he's a professor, he wrote a book called The Anxious Generation, and he said now we can say it's not just correlation, it's causation. And that Anxious Generation book, I would say if you are raising teenagers right now, you've got to get your hands on that thing, because he not only walks you through here's what's going on in the culture, the last half of the book is here's what you can do, practical steps on how to get a hold of this before it gets a hold of you. So that's a really great resource there.
Don't you think, though, that some of our, and I don't know which letter of the alphabet to use with this, but some of the people just older than you guys are already caught in that?
Yeah.
They live in anxiousness that people back when I was your age, I didn't have all of that. I might have been worried about something, but I did not have the intense anxiety that young adults have now. And it's moving into that. I hate to tell y'all this, but it's moving into the middle age that, it's a problem that's growing. And I'm not sure, sometimes parents see it as a problem in their life in order to stop it with the kids. And at some point, I don't know if that, what the church's responsibility is in that. But I know it's not pleasing to the Lord for us to be so anxious.
Yeah, I mean, millennial generation, which was basically, we got integrated into internet pretty early on, me for 5th or 6th grade even, right? So it's been part of my right hand for a long time. But even digital technology, like the iPhone being invented, 2007 or something like that. So it's been, for us, it's been pretty much a part of it, but for the younger generation, even more so. Yeah, we have to set the example first, right? As adults and as parents, right? We can't, if we were expecting our children or teenagers to follow suit, then we can't be walking around with our faces in our phone around the house all day long either.
That's right.
So if we have a blue screen on our face, then of course, we can't really have much of a leg to stand on when we tell our kids, like, you need to get off your screens.
So how do we do that? How do we as adults, I mean, I know what we're supposed to do, but in all reality, how do you accomplish that in this world? Your emails are coming to your phone, your contacts. Yeah, I'll throw Dana under the bus here. Her livelihood in realty is connected to her phone. She has it in her hand all the time. How do you get to the point that you say, I have to set boundaries? Is it a conviction? Is it what do we have to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think even as adults, I mean, you mentioned even how teenagers have had, problems with anxiety and depression as well. But I mean, like, I think that adults that have been on social media on their phones long enough know, like, you start to realize, I'm becoming anxious. I'm becoming more angry. I have a shorter temper than I used to have, and I respond to things almost quickly in a way that I used to have a longer fuse about.
Do you think that they see that, or is it going to be our responsibility as a church, as a counselor, to point that out?
It's all those things.
It's going to have to be because we're at a culture, at a point in culture where it's almost demanded and expected that we have these devices. My phone. I mean, we're here recording a podcast about technology, and my phone's on the table. I see Daniel's phone on the table. Rada, look at you go. Your phone is not on the table. But it's so hard to escape it. You've got your Apple Watch. So technically you can still get your text messages.
I do.
But if we don't respond to a text message or we don't respond to an email within a certain amount of time, the other side gets frustrated with us. And so there are demands.
Do they?
Yes.
Sometimes, people maybe do, but other times I'm like, there are other people I'm like,
it depends on the person.
Yeah.
It does.
If I text my children and they don't respond to me, they better be expecting their phone to blow up because I am going to send them one after another until they say, okay, Mom, I'll call you in a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does depend on the person, but there are some demands placed on us, and we just have to have a conversation with the person on the other side and say, hey, there are times when I'm going to be, let's say for me, I'm out playing tennis, and I may set my phone on the bench, and I'll be up running around, swinging the tennis racket for an hour before I come back to my phone. And so I may come back and see a text message and have to respond then. So that's for everybody. We've got times when we're going to be away from our phones, and there are ways we can communicate to the other person that we're busy. iPhones have the do not disturb thing where you can turn that on and you can have it auto reply to somebody, I'm busy, I'm doing something, and you can even give it a custom response. So there are ways around that, but we have to guard our time, and that's going to look kind of unique per person and per situation.
I know when I got into this months ago, and I know we're going to get to it more probably here in a little bit, but whenever I started taking my class, in my doctoral class about education and technology and reading 10 plus books about technology, I took all my digital social media off my phone. After reading so much about it. I have no social media on my phone anymore, and honestly, it didn't bother me. I mean, like, I don't look back and say, I'm really missing out on anything. No, I'm not. If anything, I'm just missing out on being addicted and just wanting to look down at my phone for random reasons and nothing helpful at all.
Yeah. I'll never forget a day when Esther, she was probably 2 or 3 years old. Now she's about to be 7. I didn't realize it. She was yanking on my shirt saying, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." And I'm just scrolling. I can't remember if it was Facebook or Instagram, but I'm just scrolling like a zombie until finally she's screaming and she grabs my face and she goes, "Daddy," and she's squeezing my face. And I realize, oh my goodness, I've been ignoring my daughter and not even realizing it. I think a lot of us have a story kind of like that, to where they call it phone snubbing, where, our intention isn't to snub people and ignore them, but it happens because priority is taken off of the person and put on the device.
Yeah. And oftentimes it's things that need to wait or can wait. I mean, obviously there are times where there are emergencies, but if you think about it, 20 years ago, if there was an emergency, well, you're just going to have to wait sometimes. I mean, that's just the reality of it. You didn't have smartphones on your hips all the time. I still remember having to call restaurants for my home phone line to get a hold of my parents in case there was an emergency about my brothers beating me up. Like those are the kind of things that I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember a good friend of mine, we were playing football and we threw the ball and he went out to catch it and he ran right into a light pole and he just tore his forehead up and he needed stitches bad. But we didn't have any medical insurance card for him or anything like that. Tried calling his parents and just couldn't get a hold of him. I mean, so that was kind of pre-cell phone days and all of that. And so it would have been nice if his parents had a cell phone, then we could get a hold of him. But yeah, things were different in that time, definitely. So Daniel, you were talking about, you just read 10 plus. I know it was more than 10. You read a lot on all this for one class you had in your doctoral program. Words are difficult.
You're doing great, buddy.
And it was kind of focused on technology in the Christian life. What are some things that surprised you or you did not expect going into that class?
Yeah, technology, and particularly the internet, is really a form or a habitat, culture even, that shapes our understanding of the world around us. And I think a lot of us, because we use it all the time, we don't really think about it, that it's a worldview shaping tool. Because you think about it, people make these devices, people make them with certain intentions, people form and create the internet for a particular way, and their purpose is to receive your attention, right? And so it's been crafted to draw us in.
Right. Can we rewind a bit and break down what's a worldview really briefly? You say worldview shaping tool.
Yeah, it's the lenses in which one sees the world around them, right? So it's the way in which one perceives everyday life. And, whether that be your upbringing or your education or where you are, social economic situation or geographic region, there's so many different things, political worldviews and all that, your Christianity, the religions that you have, all these different things that shape the way that you see the world around you. And of course, the internet and technology shapes the way that we see the world around us. And it has been created by certain individuals to shape you, and you may not even realize it.
Yeah, there's a documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma that kind of it literally shows you how all that can happen. I remember there was this kid on there. He's getting on social media, scrolling through it, and he's looking at some of the things going on in the culture, and he sees, there's a protest going on nearby. I want to hop in on that, and I want to go. And he doesn't realize his whole worldview and his culture is being shaped by what he's seeing as he's just scrolling. And he goes to this protest not even really knowing what he believes and ends up actually getting arrested while he's there because it turns violent.
You think of it this way. I mean, like when you are around certain people, you begin to take on some of their behaviors. You take on some of their language. You take on some of their mannerisms. Same thing with the internet. I mean, like, the more that you are on the internet, guess what? You are starting to slowly become like the internet. And if you really kind of think about what that even entails, right? That means your attention span has decreased, your ability to comprehend actual conversations has decreased, the desire for dopamine hits has increased. So all these different things. In fact, I love what Samuel James said in the book Digital Liturgies. We don't realize when we're being pushed towards rhythms, patterns, and attitudes that undermine Christian formation, because we usually only look for the explicit worldviews and not in our devices, but they are there. So whether or not you're using your phones or just scrolling on the internet, I mean, we are being shaped and formed by something and someone who has created that, and we just have to be very mindful about it.
I'd like to put in a quick plug for our Discipleship University class, Truth. What is it?
Yeah.
Because if we don't know the truth, if we don't know where to find the truth, how are we going to sort this other stuff out?
Yeah. Yeah. And God's word, where you're basing your class off of, it doesn't change. God never changes his mind. God never says, what does Russ say? Oops.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
My bad.
Whoopsie, my bad.
Yeah.
It never says any of that. But social media, you're going to find things all the time that are
Well,
fake
and
news.
even on news broadcast at 5:30 or 6 o'clock at night, you get their slant. And I know when I was preparing, and this is a little bit off of it, but when I was preparing for part of my DU class, I said they're even going on newscasts now to do a verify. But it still slants to the angle and depends on how the question is asked, whether you get the honest truth or not. And so you have to know the truth. You have to know God's word in order to do that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, we're not
That
going
was
to
a
rely on
rabbit hole.
Facebook or Instagram for our
No,
truth. Yeah.
no.
What was it? Pizzagate. Do y'all remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, that whole scandal where they said that all these pizza stores had underground human trafficking rings, and there was one guy that charged one of these pizza joints just like a Larry's Pizza or Gino's Pizza or Cece's, and ends up getting arrested. FBI gets involved, and then they realize, wow, Pizzagate's just false.
Yeah.
Fake news, right?
Yeah.
What about AI? I know when you were kind of hopping in this class, it seems you started in one direction, but I know our conversations really shifted and started gearing more toward AI as you were in that class.
Yeah, that was particularly because I decided that I needed to go and brush up on that a lot more, because as the internet was in the 90s for a lot of us, the AI is going to be here for us in the future, and we all have to learn how to navigate those waters, because just like the internet, which is shark-infested waters, so is AI. And remembering that artificial intelligence is just that, it's artificial, and who created it but sinful human beings. And so where it can be helpful at times, and I like using like ChatGPT, sometimes it's very helpful, but other times knowing that it has its own bent, has its own slant, has its own perspective. Why? Because the input is from people, and people are not perfect. So we have to remember not only that, but artificial intelligence is artificial yet again, in that it does not replace actual human interaction. And I think that's what we need to remember for the future. It's really interesting. I think it was actually, again, Reclaiming Conversations with Sherry Turkle, when she was talking about how, like at a nursing home, they were giving like artificial bots or animals to those who were there. And all the actual people, like the nursing home staff, was actually standing back and watching bonds with non-people, and how bad it is that we have come to a society where almost we don't want to interact with one another. We're happier if people are just satiated with all their needs with digital technologies, whether it be kids at restaurants just watching phones all day long, or their tablets, not even interacting anymore, or even now in nursing homes where we're happy to throw them at TV screens or artificial intelligence in order to keep them company. But those are not image bearers. Artificial intelligence is not an image bearer of the Lord, and so therefore it cannot actually satisfy us like God had created Adam and Eve. The first thing that God saw was wrong was for Adam to be alone. And so the animals were not sufficient. Adam needed a companion.
That's some heavy-hitting stuff right there.
I'll lighten it a little. My favorite day of the week is Tuesday. Why?
Taco Tuesday.
It's not because of my love for tacos. It's my love for sitting around the table with people that I respect and I work with, and we get to just have conversations. That's what I love about Taco Tuesday. And sometimes there are more than others. Sometimes it's different groups. It's always good conversation. And it's not the tacos, guys. I hate to disappoint you, but
the tacos are still pretty good for $1.
Well, they are.
Well, what I'm
they
hearing is
are.
that it's us. So
It is.
Even better.
But that if we took that into our homes and we took that concept in, I caught myself the other night. Bentley came to church with me for supper. I sat him down and I put Kenny's phone in front of him, and he was watching it. He was good as gold, no problems to me at all. He never took his eyes off that phone. Shame on me as a grandparent.
Wow.
Yeah, there's so many practical things there. I know you want to unpack another time, but it's something that we have to be watchful of.
And I think we'll kind of unpack that a little bit more for the next episode, which will drop the next week. Along those lines, when we were in Florida for vacation this last summer, there was a birthday party they looked about to be a bunch of 4 or 5 year olds. And this birthday party around this table, I would say there's 6 or 7 of these kids. There was not one kid without a tablet around the table. They had their party hats on. They had the cake in the middle of the table.
Yeah.
But yet none of them were talking amongst one another. They were all watching their tablets.
I don't know if you even noticed this. Yesterday when we were at lunch together, I noticed a young couple sitting right next to each other, and they were on their phones the entire time they were eating lunch together. I'm like, okay, I understand if you have important business that maybe you got to take care of, but maybe it's okay to put your phone aside and actually interact with one another as well. So you got to be intentional. You have to be intentional about it.
Right. And it's so hard. We've lost the art of conversation. So now we have all of these products out there that are literally like, conversation starters for the dinner table, which if you need that, that's fine. We got a pack for our kids that's designed for families, and it's actually a lot of fun. It has some fun questions that you can just talk through. But schools, if you look at the statistics of schools hiring speech pathologists, they're about double what they were 20 years ago. And so the amount of money schools are having to pour into that because kids are not getting spoken to like they used to.
It's terrible.
And they just can't talk. And if they can, it's just very delayed, and they need help. And so we're seeing that kind of cultural shift, and the sociologists are kind of pointing it back to they just not getting the interaction that they need. And Rada, it's not just you. I can tell you that. I've done that a myriad times with my own children, and shame on me too.
And there's something to be said. Sometimes as a parent, you're like, I just need a few minutes to actually collect my own thoughts, right?
I agree.
And, sometimes I've been there too. I'm just like, I just need you to sit over here for 10, 15 minutes, watch whatever, and just let me take care
10,
of this.
15 minutes is one thing.
That's
but
right.
when we're talking for 3 hours, that's another thing.
Yeah, I've been reading more and more research about that alone. Right now, as of certain different readings, 1 to 2 hours is pretty much, they're saying for children, like, they're good at 1 to 2 hours of screen time. And but the other thing that they keep on saying right now too is the need for interaction in their screen time. So what I mean by that is you need to watch things with your children, and then you can have conversations, and they need that interaction. I even noticed my 2-year-old says, "Daddy, sit with me while I watch this," because it's not just the watching of the screen, right? But they also need that interaction, those conversations, and that's why even for teenagers, or for your young children, if you're watching a movie together, sometimes I'm okay at pausing the movie. And it's like, okay, here's what's going on in the movie. Sometimes those old 90s movies, I forget different words or certain situations that I wasn't prepared for. And then I'm like, okay, here's what's going on. This is what you need to know. Make sure you don't do this. This is why, and all those kind of things, right? So we need to make sure that we're involved in having conversations about the screens that they are watching.
Yeah,
we were watching the Mighty Ducks a few months ago, and I forgot Mighty Ducks has a few words in it that shouldn't be in there.
And some strong situations even.
Yes, and I love that series. The Mighty Ducks is great.
Yep.
But I had to do the same thing. I paused it, looked at my daughter, and said, "Hey, we don't say that word, and here's why."
Yep.
As simple as that.
It got to the point with my kids, if something like that came up, even as old as they are, I would say, "Guys," and they'd say, "We know, we don't say that." So I mean, it's true. If you let it go, it's a slow fade.
It is,
like the song says, and we give our heart away. And we don't even realize we're doing it.
We got to be proactive there, and we can use it as a teaching tool. What an opportunity! I think we miss too that maybe we sometimes try to rip all of the technology and pull it away. There can be kind of an overcorrection.
Right.
Maybe there can be a middle point where I was speaking recently with a dad who said, my kid just wants me to sit down and watch him play Xbox. And I remember asking him, have you tried playing with him?
Yeah.
You know, whether that's a racing game or, you know, they're playing Madden or football, who knows, or basketball, I mean, who knows what. You can do multiplayer on there and you can make those memories. Some of my favorite are, I would sit down. My dad would not play Call of Duty with me, even though I tried to get him to. But he loved NASCAR. I remember my dad every Sunday would just watch the race. And I just thought he was crazy. I love my dad, but he just watched cars go in circles.
They just turn
Another left turn, man. Yeah.
left turn, left turn.
I'm waiting on that right eventually. So we buy a NASCAR racing game for the Xbox. And those are some of my greatest memories looking back with my dad, where he was not good at it. He was terrible at it. But because he was terrible at it and he was so far behind everybody, he would turn around
fun.
and start going backwards and crashing everybody. And he was laughing and we'd start. It was just a fun thing. That's what we would do together. So my dad, even though he was a hunt and peck kind of typer, he couldn't type normally. That's how he found the middle ground with me. So I learned something from my dad in that.
Yeah, that's good.
Good lesson.
Great lesson. Yeah, so now my kids getting to that age where they're playing the Switch. I can play with them. You told me about that. What's that Goose game?
Oh, Untitled Goose Game.
Untitled Goose
so
Game.
Funny.
If you want to make some goofy memories with your
It's
kids
so
and
funny.
laugh, that's a great little game.
It's a funny game.
Mario Kart, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So not all technology is bad.
That's right.
We can say that. All right, let's see. Why is this important? Why does this matter? Can't we just enjoy our phones and be happy, all of our devices, and be happy without? Is ignorance bliss here?
Can we eat sweets and sugar all the time without worrying about it? The answer, of course, is no. So the same thing goes with our technology as well. There's wisdom that must be used in everything that we do, not only in the life of a Christian from how we need to take care of our eating habits or how we take care of our bodies and how we interact with other people, but how we use the technology around us as well. Right now, you're watching this on technology. Hopefully, this is a blessing. Hopefully, this is encouraging to you. Hopefully, this is helpful for you. But if you're watching screens 5 hours a day, we probably need to start thinking about whether or not that's actually helpful for you in your Christian walk.
Yeah, I guess if you can binge a whole season of your favorite show and not talk to your wife or your kids that day,
Not helpful.
something's going on there.
Yeah. Really need to be mindful of the addictions in your life.
Yeah.
And technology is easy one of those.
I also looked at this, when you say, well, why does this matter? It goes back to, why did Eve have to have the fruit from that tree? Because when something is put in front of us and we know that there's danger there as humans and as sinful people, we're drawn to that. And we have to guard our hearts, guard our minds, guard our families, our homes.
That's a good word.
But it goes all the way back to the very beginning. No, she didn't have an apple, but she did choose to eat of the fruit that she was told not to do. And it's our nature. And so I think it's for the same reason she shouldn't have made that choice comes to us.
Technology in itself is not the problem. It's how we use it. Just as God asked Noah to build an ark, which is a technological ingenuity, right? Just generations later, we have a Tower of Babel where they use new technological feats in order to try to make themselves better than God. And, there's so much theological depth in that right there. But, we have one instance where God saves people through technology with the ark. And we have another situation where God's people have been rebellious against him in their own technological use as well. So why are you using it? Using it for your own selfish glory? Or are you using it to honor the Lord?
And I think that is a great point to break. And we're going to kind of close things out for this podcast and say stay tuned for the next one. And we're going to go a little bit more practical and answer the questions of now knowing all these things, what do I need to do? How do I live wisely in the digital age as a follower of Jesus? How do I guard my family, as you were saying? How do I protect my own heart, as you guys were talking about? So we appreciate you guys listening in. Thank you, Daniel, for joining
Thanks
us.
for having me.
I
Yeah.
know we're going to get one more with you and maybe some more down the road. We're just going to have to keep
If I
bringing
don't
you in.
ruin it. So.
Well, we look forward to the next opening question. I will say that.
Oh, goody.
Can't wait for it. More embarrassing text messages to the wrong person. Well, hey, if you are listening on YouTube, we want to say thank you for joining us. Hit that subscribe button. If you are on Apple Podcast or Spotify, go ahead and leave an honest 5-star review. We know you can do that. We appreciate you listening, and don't forget to love God
And love people.
and
Daniel.
pray. There we go. All right, we'll see you guys.